Somewhere in this idyllic town nestled in a valley in the southern Alps of Switzerland, a predator priest roams free. Father Frederick Abbé, a priest of the Society of St. Pius X, was convicted in a Belgian court in 2017 for child sex crimes, sentenced to 5 years in prison. But before he could serve a day behind bars, he fled to his native Switzerland, where locals say he walks free, even frequenting a swimming pool with his nephews. Meanwhile, the parents of abuse victims continue to grieve and mourn the damage Abbé did to their sons' lives and souls.
It's too difficult.
Yes, and then, it's still emotional after all these years.
It's very devilish for me. And there we have the children.
None of the suffering could have happened had it not been for the actions of not one, not two, but 3 SSPX clergy who to this day refuse to admit their complicity in evil. Most disturbing, Bishop Bernard Fillet kept the predator in place even after he admitted his temptations around boys. So grievous were Fillet's actions that the abuse of these young boys can be laid directly at the feet of the bishop, whom SSPX faithful consider a holy man of God, but in truth has no problem sacrificing victims.
There is something wrong in the church.
Bishop Bernard Fillet, Superior General of the SSPX for 24 years, from 1994 to 2018, assigned Father Abbé to this priory in Brussels, Belgium in 2006, which houses the École Notre-Dame, an SSPX boarding school where Abbé had direct and easy access to the boys' dorms, sneaking into their bedroom at night and sexually abusing them. Most shocking, Fillet assigned him there in violation of a 10-year ban on the priest from being around children unsupervised. An SSPX tribunal in June 2006 had imposed a number of restrictions on Abbé arising from earlier abuse allegations, where a boy had accused him of sexually assaulting him at a scout camp the priest ran in Valais, Switzerland. A letter written by Secretary General Father Christian Thouvenot confirms the restrictions, which included a 10-year ban on using the internet, which Fillet lifted immediately, and a 10-year ban on being around children unsupervised, which Fillet violated within less than 2 months, assigning Abbé to live in the Priory of Christ the King Chapel in Brussels, where the priest would live under the same roof as young boys.
And we have been clearly misled by FSSPX.
Yeah.
We have been misled.
And they are big liars.
Florence and Carlo Peter's 9-year-old son, Nicolas, was abused by Abbé. This is the first time they've spoken publicly. So do you agree with some other critics, other victims who say that the SSPX leadership is more interested in protecting its reputation than protecting victims?
Yes, I do agree.
200% agree.
Yeah,
200%. Nicolas was only 8 years old when he became a boarding school student at the SSPX's Our Lady of Holy Hope Academy in Brussels in 2010. Where he and other little boys slept on the top floor. It was there that Abbé would assault the boys at night, coming into the dorms and placing his hand under the boys' sheets, or carrying them out of the room to abuse them elsewhere.
And at the end,
he began to cry.
And it came out
to say what happened.
Say out what happened, and then we had some more details afterwards.
The parents reported the abuse immediately, meeting with Father Benoit Wayer, prior of the chapel, who acted surprised, failing to inform them of Abbé's restrictions or that Wayer had already been aware of other abuse claims. Now, at the time when you mentioned your son's abuse to Father Benoit Wayer, did he bring up the fact that Father Abbé had prior abuse allegations against him from Switzerland from years earlier?
No.
That came after a
long time
afterwards.
When it was too late.
No, he didn't tell anything about that.
In fact, when the case first went to criminal court, the Peters initially lost because of lack of sufficient evidence. It was a case of he said, Abbé first claiming Nicolas was lying, later changing his story to say he was sleepwalking and not conscious when the abuse took place. During the trial, Did the SSPX, even though they promised to help you, did they actually help you? And did they at any time reveal Father Abe's prior abuse allegations?
No, they only gave things to the justice when they had to.
Now we heard about the old case with Father Abe just by coincidence. Nobody spontaneously told us about that. We always had to ask, and they promised to do things, but never did anything.
The Peters only won on appeal after they learned, purely by accident, that Abe had come to Brussels with prior abuse allegations, identical to those of their own son, and that an SSPX canonical court itself had imposed severe restrictions on Abe in 2006, restrictions that Fallet violated almost immediately.
Dominus vobiscum.
Fallet himself refused to hand over information about Abe's earlier abuse allegations when he met one-on-one with the Peters. In short, Fallet willfully concealed evidence from the court and from the parents of sexual assault victims.
And he said, "Oh, I can't because it's a secret. It's a secret, and only Rome
can decide
if I can give you the secret." And we say,
and he said that, but at that time he already knew that Rome had decided that the FSPX should resolve these cases internally. So he knew that.
So you're saying that? Are you saying he lied to you?
Yes, of course he lied.
Of course.
He's a good liar.
It was only after the court ordered Fallet to do so that he finally disclosed information about Abe's prior abuse allegations from Switzerland. Based on this new information, the Peters won their case on appeal, and Abe was convicted.
I can say you normally priests are trying getting people to heaven and not putting us through hell during a few years.
Now, do you think, since you lost your first trial, do you think if you had never found out about the prior abuse allegations about Abe, do you think that the SSPX ever would have come to help you?
No, never.
Those restrictions on Father Abe had been communicated early on to Father Jürgen Wegner,
the refusal of the church,
former prior of the Brussels chapel, and later to Father Wayet. But none of that was ever made known to parents in Brussels, nor was the society forthcoming about them even after complaints arose against Abe there.
But Father Wayet, he knew, and he didn't do anything. That is incredible. That is incredible. That is just incredible.
Victoria Weber's two sons, 6-year-old Richard and 8-year-old Edmund, were also abused by Father Abe in the same school year. This is also her first time going public.
I never want them. I will do everything that is possible for me that they, being abused by a priest, will never become a priest themselves. And I mean that.
Long before learning about the abuse, Victoria had met with Wayet in December 2010 to complain about expensive gifts Father Abe had been giving to her son Edmund, typical of grooming tactics.
And I made this complaint, I guess it was in December, to Abbé Wayet about me not trusting Father Abe with his behavior and, his presents he gave to Edmund.
So he gave presents to your son Edmund. What kind of presents did he give?
Oh, he gave big presents, bigger than I normally give.
She told Wayet to have a talk with the other clergy about sex abuse and grooming, something Wayet never did. So this was in December. Did Father Wayet give you any indication at that time that he knew about Father Abe's past abuse allegations against him in Switzerland?
No, not at all. Not at all. He didn't do anything with this. He just let it happen further on for another few months. So this is, for me, I can't understand why. I don't understand why.
Victoria finally learned in April 2011 about the abuse both her sons had suffered. It was in the car driving home from school that Richard broke down in tears, and his older brother Edmund explained what happened after Abbé had carried Richard out of his bed in the middle of the night.
And I said, what is it, Edmund? What do you mean? And then he said, well, then he brought Richard back, and Richard was just standing there, Mama. And he was just standing there looking out of the window. It was night, so it was dark. And they had curtains. And he said, he's looking out of the window. And we asked him, Richard, what happened? Are you okay? And he just said, it's a secret between l'abbé et moi. The abbé et moi, Father Abbé.
She met with Father Wayé the next day.
And the first thing I asked him was, did you speak like you promised me? Did you speak to your priest? Did you speak to Abbé? And then he said, no, I didn't. Just like that. No, I didn't. And I was like, well, now it's too late.
So when you spoke to him in this meeting, did he, at
just
that time, did he ever give any indication that he knew about the prior abuse of Father
Not
Abbé?
at all. Not at all.
As the abuse became more widely known, the Weber family soon began to be shunned by the SSPX.
So I felt very, very fast that this was all turning around like that we were the guilty ones and they were the victims. That was the atmosphere that I felt very fast. I began to feel more and more the mentality of St. Pius X, more and more by all these priests just dropping us. They just dropped us like annoying, making difficulties.
One SSPX priest managed to secure them a private meeting with Bishop Fellay, who made a special trip to the Webers' home that summer.
He acted like he didn't know anything.
So he also, when you met,
and we believed him.
When you met with Bishop Fellay,
yes,
he also gave no indication at all that he knew of Father Abbé's past allegations.
At the contrary, the opposite. Totally the opposite. Totally the opposite.
Fellay promised the Webers he'd do everything he could to help, even claiming he'd start a canonical process right away. What did he promise you?
That he would do this investigation as soon as possible, that he would send people over from his fraternity to talk to us and to find out more and more, this kind of things, that he would handle this totally.
And did he?
Well, no. No, he didn't. Nobody came. Nobody contacted us. This was the first contact 1 year later.
That letter was from Fellay informing the Webers he had decided, contrary to what he'd promised, that he would not start a canonical process against Abbé until the criminal trial was over. In 2016, an SSPX priest wrote a letter to Superior General Fellay with a heartfelt plea asking him to stop protecting predators. Quote, I know the reputation of the society is at stake and that the condemnation of one of its former members will be negative for it. But it would be much more harmful in the long term to learn that authorities in the society have all attempted to exonerate a former member to the detriment of the justice due to the victims. No victims have sullied the society, quite the opposite with regard to the predators. He goes on, look at all the scandals that have shaken the church a little everywhere in the world for some years. Bishops have been condemned for covering up these horrors. Spare the society from suffering this shame. Fellay wrote back, in essence telling him to mind his own business. Quote, don't involve yourself in this matter, but leave it to the superiors who have the graces of office to handle it as they must. Going on to blame the victims. Quote, unfortunately, you're wrong when you say that no victims have sullied the society. Little did the priest or the victims' families know that Fellay was sending his personal secretary, Father Raphael Grange, to accompany Father Abbé daily to the courthouse. Grange had worked as an attorney before he became a priest and was dressed in lay clothes to avoid being discovered. It's hard not to conclude that Fellay sent Grange there to give Father Abbé legal advice, once again showing Fellay was not on the side of victims, but rather working to protect his own priest, even one with a track record of pedophilia. That was in 2016. The next year, the Belgian court handed down a conviction against Abbé, sentencing him to 5 years prison for his crimes. The conviction partially hung on damning audio recordings made by Father Wayé when he questioned Abbé in 2011 in the immediate aftermath of his abuse at the Brussels Academy. The audio recordings not only reveal that Abbé admitted to temptations around boys, but also contained a kind of confession of his crimes. Abbé also says on tape he's spoken to Bishop Fillet about his predilection for boys, revealing that Fillet was fully aware of the danger the priest posed to the boys in Brussels, yet kept him in place. Even worse, Wayé withheld the crucial evidence contained in these recordings for 6 years, never mentioning the tapes during the trial, only making them available to the court on appeal in 2017. The prosecutor was so outraged by the SSPX's conduct that he shouted in court on the last day of argument that the society should have been put on trial and not just Abbé.
The Belgian attorney was furious and he said the FSSPX should have been here next to Father Abbé to be judged.
The panel of judges agreed, the court accusing the SSPX of criminogenic behavior, a French term meaning fostering or promoting pathologically criminal conduct. And the Society's actions so shocked European victims' rights groups that 3 of them published a joint statement accusing the SSPX of deception and obstruction of justice. Quote, "When the families of the Belgian victims learned from other sources of Father Abbé's onerous past, the SSPX set up roadblocks in various ways, by first refusing to put them in contact with a Swiss victim or even to give them his identity, then requiring them to go through a lawyer specially hired for this purpose, a lawyer of a very particular kind. A parishioner of the Geneva chapel of the SSPX, he behaved more like a devotee of Bishop Fillet than a lawyer, treating the Belgian families with extreme contempt and systematically obstructing their contact with a Swiss victim. We do not see cooperation with justice there." After that, the SSPX releases a statement congratulating themselves for cooperating with the authorities. What is your reaction to that?
I was furious. I was furious, and I directly sent them a mail with all the wrong things they did and all the difficulties we had to achieve that. They never helped us. Never.
To this day, Abbé remains a free man, never having served a day in prison.
Nobody's talking, nobody knows, and we don't know what to do to have justice made, because we have a verdict, but there's no justice.
He's free, possibly to abuse more children.
Oh,
so,
yes.
do you think Fillet, if he really cared about the welfare of the children, he should let the local police know? He should let the Swiss government know?
Of course. That's nothing more than normal, is it? How can you even argue this? This is the first thing you should do. The first thing Wayé should have done, Father Wayé. It's normal, but it's not normal there. So the FSSPX is more important to. It's a kind of cult, you understand? It's a kind of cult.
Bishop Fillet has fallen silent in the face of church militants' multiple media queries, refusing to answer basic questions about his role in the Abbé affair, why he violated the ban almost immediately, and whether he feels any remorse for the suffering he caused to victims. Because of Fillet's connections in Switzerland, he could easily track down Abbé and help bring him to justice, but he has thus far refused any such appeals. As has become increasingly clear ever since church militants' April 22nd expose detailing decades of sex abuse and cover-up in the SSPX, transparency and accountability are notions far removed from the society, which appears to believe it's above the law, its leadership ignoring and dismissing the pleas of its own clergy as well as parishioners, while protecting the society's reputation above all. Meanwhile, a predator priest roams free in the village of Fully, Switzerland, with children who remain at risk, all because of the society's complicity in evil. Christine Niles, Church Militant, Detroit.